I started the book. It was a journey, fascinating, and it worked me. It worked on me.
Yeah.
It went inside me and shook me up. Upsetting at times.
Unsettling.
Unsettling.
Yeah. It disassembles belief systems.
But what also is great about it is it allows you to keep whatever belief systems you need intact. So that was really great. So I didn't have to go anywhere I wasn't going. So you say, I said, well, this spoke to me. I'm so grateful to hotels. They give me pillows, mattresses, sheets, everything I need for a good night's sleep. Everything is always taken care of beyond what I think I want. There are windows, there are tissues, there's a notepad and a pen. There's a Gideon Bible, so dear to so many, which stays in the drawer. Which, the Bible, right? And then I saw, I have so many judgments about the Bible. But then if I just look, it's dear to many, and that's valuable to them. And why shouldn't it be valuable to them? I have what's valuable to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's an open mind. So when you see that and you understand that in the way that you obviously have, you have just caught up. It's like there's nothing new here. It's just that you are catching up with reality.
Right.
And so you're not being outdistanced. Like mind and reality begin to meet. And that's a wonderful thing.
And then I start to see all my prejudices. So my kids go to the United Nations International School, and they're Muslim mothers, and they wear whatever they wear, burqas or whatever they wear. And I see that that's important to them.
When you catch up with reality and what really is, you see it everywhere. You begin to unravel. Your mind opens up to what is, and you begin to see a world you couldn't see before.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And loving what is.
On my bedside table, there's also a bottle of water for my morning tea. I buy it at a gas station or a grocery store or the little shop in the hotel. I look at the brands of bottled water, curious to see which one my hand will choose.
You never know.
And loving that I never can know until it actually picks up the bottle. All of a sudden, my hand was something not me.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think I do.
So it was like I would do things at the house or, this or that, and it just kind of brought me maybe present, or so it calmed me down maybe, so I could go to the office and sit down and start a tax return. And
well, it's a lot of fun too, because you get to observe your own life. You get to observe life. You get to watch it move. You get to see what it reaches for, what it does, and without the mind saying, I did it.
Right.
And it leaves you free to just observe intelligence, the way of it.
So then it allows me to let my children move their hands where their hands move.
As you begin to give your children permission to be.
Right.
Without your internal judgments or even your spoken judgment.
So then I get to be gentler on myself because the judgments come, and it's like, don't do that, and it's like, don't do that. Why? I don't know, because I said not to do that.
Yeah, that's a much more playful parent.
And Laura, my wife, and I talked about that, allowing the children to have freedom to express themselves. And, I said to her, because, in our house, it kind of works two ways. She's sort of the disciplinarian, and I'm sort of not. So, I sort of, what I noticed I did, and then I caught myself, was I started to say, you shouldn't tell them to do their homework because it's suppressing their freedom. And she said, no, it's not.
I agree with her.
Tell me how you see that. Why is that?
Well, she knows what works and what doesn't out of experience.
Right.
And she can say, do this, don't do that. and she'll probably notice that they do or don't, no matter
Right.
what she says, and sometimes, and she's passing on experience.
Right.
And that's a very good thing to give children.
I'm smart enough to know that what she's doing is good.
And so are your children.
Here's the part that the cashier is a man or a woman, young or old, white or dark, dark or Asian. We usually exchange a few words. It isn't a little thing. All my life, I have been waiting to meet this person.
Yeah.
Wow. How many people a day do I not see?
Yeah, good question. And that's what water's for.
That's what water's for?
What everything's for. I mean, everything is about your awareness. Everything is about how you see it and waking you up to what's true and what's not. Basically, waking you up to yourself.
Right.
To your nature, which is not separate from anything. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
I mean, if someone says, for example, with the water thing, what do you think you're doing? When you pick up the water, it's just such a wonderful question. It'll bring you back to presence. What do you think you're doing?
So you listen to people like that.
Very, very closely. There's no mistake in the universe.
Do you? This is a change, but I just when you said it in that tone, I thought, I could get offended by someone speaking to me in a certain way.
Well, actually not. Your thoughts about that person and how they're speaking, that's all that can upset you, not that person. They just ask a question in the way that they ask it. But you put meaning onto that and you upset you.
So can a person ask a question unkindly?
Only if you believe that they're unkind. And I prefer simply hearing the question, no matter how it's asked.
Right. So let's say...
Because maybe that's the only way I can hear it.
Right.
And I drop the maybe.
It's amazing, how you can... What I'll tell you what also I found fascinating, sometimes like the first question was enough.
Oh, yeah.
It was time efficient. It was like, okay, was that true? Is that true? Is that true? And I didn't even have to say it to anybody. I looked at it and then I lived it.
Yes. That is the non-believer, the don't know mind.
So yeah, powerful because, asking a question like, are you my daughter? Allows me to interact with her in, I don't know, in a different way. If you're not my daughter, maybe you are, maybe you're not, maybe you are. But if I don't own you, I do own you, I don't. And then all of a sudden every interaction is like a dance,
Yes.
New. What do you mean when you say no two people have ever met?
Well, one example is someone says, what do you think you're doing? And what you'd see is a harsh manner. Well, immediately in your world, you've met an unkind person. You have put that meaning onto that person, and you don't know that person, and yet you believe it. You judge him from your story about him. So, and I would hear, he would say, what do you think you're doing to me? And I'd think, wow, what a kind man. He's interested in me. He has no reason to be, and he wants to know what I'm doing. So I see him as a very kind man. So he is two different people. And he's a kind man in my world, and he's an unkind man in your world. So I definitely prefer my world to an unkind world, any unkind world. So that's what I mean by no two people have ever met. It's like you didn't meet him, and I didn't meet him. It's just that I prefer the one I met. Mm-hmm. And I make very good use of words, of their gifts, communication. It's what we have to give.
Right.
But he's not someone that you would want to spend a lot of time with, probably.
No.
But he didn't alienate himself from your life. You alienated him from your life. Mm-hmm. He couldn't alienate himself from my life. No one has that choice. That's my choice. if I judge someone as an uncaring, unkind human being, I have just believed my thoughts about them. I haven't met an unkind person in 21 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if we're traveling. You haven't been to New York.
I spent a lot of time in New York.
No, I get it though. I do get it. I get it. And do I live that way? I don't know. Maybe sometimes.
What I've noticed is that parents haven't met their children.
Right.
That partners haven't met each other the way they really are.
Even, reading something from Laura, and I don't know if could be possibly the same thing, reading something from their book and expecting I know what her reaction is going to be, and it's not that.
Yeah,
I don't know this woman.
Yeah, who is it you live with? Yeah.
So is that,
That's it.
could that be an example?
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who, after doing inquiry sincerely for a number of years, came to understand that the world is a reflection of mind. She was married to a man who was the love of her life, and one day, while they were sitting on their couch, he had a heart attack and died in her arms. After the first shock and the tears, she began looking for grief, and there was none. For a week, she kept looking for grief because her friends told her that grief was a necessary part of the healing process. And all she felt was a completeness, that there was nothing of him that she'd had while he was physically with her that she didn't have now. She told me that every time a sad thought about him appeared, she would immediately ask, "Is it true?" and see the turnaround, which washed away the sadness and replaced it with what was true. He was my best friend. I have no one to talk to. Became, I am my best friend. I have me to talk to now. I'll miss his wisdom became, I don't miss his wisdom. There was no way she could miss it because she was that wisdom. Everything she thought she had in him, she could find in herself. There was no difference. And because he turned out to be her, he couldn't die. Without the story of life and death, she said, there was just love. He was always with her. So I'm like reading this and going, forget it. Laura, listen to this. And, I'm saying, you wouldn't feel that way. And she says, I can really get that as possible.
Yeah.
And I find I upset myself with that.
Yeah. It's like we think if we don't suffer over you, that we don't love you.
Right.
And
what's up with that?
Well, suffering teaches suffering, and it's the opposite of what we want for ourselves and other people, which is to live a happy, balanced life. And sadness is a minor tantrum. It's the war with what is.
Sadness. My father-in-law died in January, and it was devastating to my mother-in-law. And my wife is sad from time to time. She's does her day and does her life, and then sometimes at night she'll cry, and I'll say, "Are you sad?" And she'll say, "Yes, something in me misses him, and I don't hear his voice, and like that." So I'm having trouble sort of distinguishing it all.
Well, really, she was probably hearing his voice in her head as she says, "I don't hear his voice." So, and also, "I'll never see him again" is another thought people experience. And as they're imagining that person in their head, they're seeing him, and on and on and on. So I say, no one can die. They don't have that option in my life. No one dies.
Because they're there with you?
Well, because as you were talking about Laura's father, I was imagining my father immediately. It was a happening. And there he was. And that's what I did when he was alive. And let's say he's on the other side of that room. I imagine him on the other side of the room, and I saw him in my head when he was alive. So there's no difference.
Right.
There's no difference. Touch and and smell and taste and textures. Everything is a projection of mind. We would believe that there is something outside of mind. That's how powerful mind is. And there's nothing outside of mind. Mind creates it all.
You know, my father died when I was 23, and I lived at home, but I was away a lot of the day, so I didn't see him anyway.
He lived in your imagination.
You know, as amazing as I just have this, when I was a little kid, it was always shocking to me. I was very strong from, it was always shocking to me when I always thought when I was by myself that I existed. And then I was always amazed at other people appearing because I couldn't get where they came from.
Now you know, your imagination.
When they walk into a room though, is that
They are your imagination. And what I mean by that, the story that you're experiencing about them is who you believe just walked into the room.
Right.
And, my question is, who would you be without your story? You would be the little boy alone and loving it in a wild and wonderful fantasy.
Right.
And that's what life is, a fantasy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And what I invite the world to do is to question their thoughts about life and really have a happy life, to question their thoughts, their stressful thoughts about life.
And in getting to that, that's what I got the 4 questions addressed. Stressful thoughts,
yes.
Correct?
Yes, they wake us up from the nightmare. And if we can wake up from the nightmare, we eventually come to see that life is a dream. And it's so beautiful. Who wants to wake up even though you're awake?
When I read the book, why did the questioning start?
So your mind has discovered for itself the power of, is it true? It has found a way to use itself. Mind has found a way to use itself through that question to get a balance with itself and actually to find resolution with itself, to actually end the war with itself. And it's just getting a taste of that possibility, which is what it's always really wanted to do. It's always wanted to be at peace with itself so that it could create freely and still remain as identified as something. It has to exist.
Right.
What I've discovered is mind can identify as a this and have the most amazing freedom knowing that it's not this identification. And that is total freedom for the mind because it doesn't ever have to fear its own death again. And as long as it's identified as a body, mind's focus is about body's security and comfort and pleasure. And it keeps it identified and lost. But once mind wakes up with, is it true, for example,
right.
And those other 3 questions, then it begins to understand that I am not that. I am not I. I'm mind-free.
Right.
Mind-free, not limited, no longer limited. But as long as it's identified and believes that it is this, a body, then it's got to fear. It's got to fear its own demise. And it's, with is it true, it begins to wake up. But very exciting to find, is it true?
Oh, very exciting.
And I think it's an old question that has been around for centuries. And the way people have used that question has been not this. So it's like the thought arising, the concept that is bringing on the stress to identify that and put is it true up against that.
Right.
That's what's new.
Right.
That's what's new to the human race, mind. And oh my, is it undoing itself quickly? It's unraveling. The end of the world is not the end of Earth. or a planet. The end of the world is the end of mind's identification as who and what it believes itself to be. You know, I have a friend paralyzed from head to toe that's living a very full, happy life, he says, because he works with his mind and he loves everything he thinks, he says. And so it just doesn't require a body.
How did you come up with the work, the 4 questions, the turnarounds?
Well, actually, I used to sleep on the floor because I was so depressed and so full of self-loathing that I didn't believe I deserved a bed to sleep in. And so I would sleep on the floor. And one morning, actually a cockroach crawled over my foot as I lay sleeping. And I opened my eyes, and after a decade, more than a decade of very deep depression, clinical depression, there was no way out of it to my mind. But in place of all that darkness, when I opened my eyes that morning, was a world that is indescribable. It was and is amazing. And then mind hit. There was nothing, and then there was mind. And mind, I could say, I realized that not one thought running through my head was true, because I had experienced what true was prior to all thoughts. So I had a reference for what is and what isn't. And so nothing was true, and that's where the question was born. And the first question, when I first began, is it true? Can you really know that it's true? And that was all one question, so there were only 3. And I saw in that moment that mind hit, that the world immediately became separate out of names, like tree, wall, ceiling. And I saw that it wasn't. And I saw that naming was the separation. And so there was no separation, and yet the naming. So I had, how do you react when you believe that thought? Mm-hmm. And then I had, who would you be without the thought, from the original experience of nothing, no identification. And everything was backwards. It's a tree, it's not a tree. It's a sky, it's not a sky. So those are the turnarounds.
It's hard for them, it's hard to get.
It was all done in a moment.
Right.
It was a noticing.
So what I see from this book, for me, is that I don't have to do that. Well, that's anyway. Not only do I
don't.
Right. Not only do I not have to do it, it isn't my life.
No.
I don't have to be clinically depressed. I'm not.
No.
Do you know? I mean, I just want to. I think that's important for people. It's important for me to know, because it's in here. It's in 1,000 Names for Joy.
No, sweetheart, it's already been done, and the questions are discovered. And it's for everyone. And people use these questions that have wonderful lives simply because they are so exciting.
Right.
And that internal life is so exciting. Very happy people love this work.
Right.
It's unending. It's the end of identification as anything other than what it really is. It's the bottom line truth.
So one of the triplets, Sam, he likes dress up. He just likes putting on a little wedding gown. Mm-hmm. And when you answer the door and there he is, you ask him and he says, "I'm Princess Sammy." Mm-hmm. Before this, and Sam's great, but before this is like, "Sam, you're a boy, and boys don't wear wedding gowns," right? Perfectly normal response, mm-hmm. One that is agreed upon by many. But when you ask the question, is it true?
It's not.
It's not. And you know what? Sam can wear a wedding gown. As a matter of fact, he is wearing a wedding gown. So that's true.
That's true. It's very confusing for a child when you say, boys don't wear wedding gowns, and they look down and they're wearing one.
Right.
It's like, okay, so, and it's not, they don't think it out consciously like this. They don't think, well, my father is absolutely crazy. Yes, we do. They just think, wow, I'm really confused here. And then it gets scary. And then they begin to doubt everything.
Right.
Because if you don't know, they begin to doubt themselves, and it gets really scary for little kids.
Right.
And we're all little kids until we catch up with reality.
So, Sam's wearing wedding gowns, and great, because that's what he likes. And Jacob says wedding gowns are for girls.
Mm-hmm. And that's his.
And that's Jacob, and he likes being a pirate. Mm-hmm. And then, sometimes I'll intervene and say, Jacob will say to Sam, wedding gowns are for girls. And I'll say, Jacob, no, that's not true, that wedding gowns are for, but it's true for you, but not for Sam. So, and Jacob kind of goes, oh, okay, Sam can wear a wedding gown, So it's really wild. So that's the possibility of this. And it's a small example, but, it's a huge example.
But, it's only the parents' fear. And it's not as though Sam isn't going to look around and begin to notice for himself the female gender wear the dresses and the other gender doesn't. He'll begin to notice and make his own choices.
Right.
And who knows? He may be just so free that he just lives an honest life.
Right.
And determine for himself if that's counterproductive or productive. They're so smart. They're so smart.
Very freeing for the parent, me. So that's the 4 questions at work, maybe in something that seems small, but it's not small, because even when you speak about it, like I didn't even get the part that, you're communicating something to when you say he shouldn't. It's
And it's happening.
Right.
That's the difference. And that's how we give them a past and a future too. Other than that, they're really living in the moment.
That's brilliant. What is joy for you?
Yeah. Joy for me is the absence of suffering. And in that, it's very exciting. Like, I like to say that peace is underrated. There's nothing more exciting than peace. And that's joy. And the excitement of living in the moment, the excitement of no past or future. And I like to say that I would get a future if I needed one. I just see no need or cause to develop a future. I don't see the necessity of it at all. And also, I couldn't any more than anyone can, because we can't know what it is because it doesn't exist. But if we haven't questioned our past, then we have all of the stuff we believe. And what mind does with it is it projects time. Mind assumes time and misses where it's at. So it's very, very lost.
Mind is lost.
As identified as a body, because it's projecting a past and future that doesn't exist. Even now, right now, is a projection. It's a concept. And by the time we notice now, it's gone. So what does exist? If you get very, very still and begin to notice your thoughts, you'll see that they're all about what has been or what you're anticipating. It's all about anticipation or remembering.
Right.
And so what is in the center? If every thought is about remembering or anticipating, what is in the center? What is there that is real? So as you continue to use these questions, you begin to wake up to an amazing world full of joy, because you don't know what anything is. You don't know what you are.
Right.
And you just simply get to watch the way you were describing, becoming in touch with the hand.
Right.
the children.
My wife said, I don't want to do the 4 questions. And so I saw 2 ways, I could say, you do them. I want you to do them because there are things we need to work on here. You know it, right? That's one thing. But that's just more of the same, that's more of...
Well, that doesn't work either.
And I don't know if you see it happen and with people that they do the work and then they use it as a weapon,
Sure, they'll notice that it's not a kind thing, that we can use anything, but the work isn't where the power is. Those questions are not where the power is. The answers are where the power is.
Right.
So if, for example, if Stephen or one of my children said something and I said, is it true? That would be like just shoving what they said back in their face.
Right.
So it's just not kind. Or turn it around, that's...
And she did. She went right out of the room. But you know what? It's good because and then, when I look, I see, oh, that's not what it is.
The work is personal.
Right.
It's not for other people, it's for you. And that's how it works.
But that's like really key, it says it in here. It's for me. But then, it's amazing. But it's very different experience when it's like a tool instead of a weapon.
It's a way to wake up to who does need the work. If I think someone else needs the work, I need the work.
Right.
And it doesn't stop me from inviting people to it. If I hear someone, for example, in an elevator or maybe in a discussion on the plane, a flight somewhere, and I hear that they're stressed out, I just can immediately go to, I've discovered the most marvelous, amazing way to end stress, and it's called The Work of Byron Katie, and it's so simple. Anyone can do it if they're open to it, and it just takes a moment. Would you like to try it? And they say yes or no.
Right.
If they say no, then I send them to the website. And if they say yes, then I take the concept that I heard that they're struggling over, I walk them through the 4 questions, and they blow their own minds.
Right.
And it changes their life forever.
Now, the difference between joy and pleasure is...
Pleasure is the story of a future, and so it can never be repeated. We experience something, mind thinks it likes it, it's how it stays identified, and then it tries over and over and over to have the same experience again, and it's all just an illusion, trying to repeat what, for all it knows, never happened, because mind builds things up. So it's, pleasure is, all pleasure is pain. Well, simply because it is projected. You just can't have the same experience twice.
So pleasure is pain.
Simply because it's projected. You can't, it cannot repeat the same thing twice when it comes to pleasure, the emotional. That's why for drug addicts, the drug stops working or it just doesn't work as well, and then they just end up addicted without the pleasure and just living a life of hell. And the same for compulsive overeaters or any addictions. And addictions are nothing more than something that we resort to when we don't know how to deal with our thoughts and we want mind to stop or change. In other words, how do you react when you believe that thought?
Right.
Well, the mind, when we look at how the mind reacts, there are physical feelings, that's a reaction. There are images that happen, that's a reaction. And then addictions begin to happen, that is a reaction. And then it's a cycle that goes over and over and over until the mind finds resolution. and then addictions shift.
So,
And they don't replace. Like if we just do it, and we still have the same mindset, but we just, in other words, by do it, I mean, like we just don't do the addiction, then it switches to something else because we're still living out of the same, we're still believing the same thoughts.
so I'm going to give you something that I can relate to, like accumulating money. I mean, I see people and me, you have one apartment and it's not good, so you get a bigger apartment, and then before you know it, you have a 20,000 square foot home in the Hamptons, and then you have 5 cars, but that's not it. It's 7 cars, and it's just like, would that be?
Yeah, it's trying to find satisfaction, but
it looks good.
It looks good, and I'm not hearing a lot of satisfaction in the scenario you're giving me.
Right, there isn't.
So when people do the work, question their thoughts, the thoughts that they're believing, their stressful thoughts, I really like to emphasize, then eventually they love what they have.
Right, now that I get as joy, because it's a matter of,
you're satisfied all the time.
It's walking into the apartment that we have, and the shoes are on the floor. There's 5 kids, and you're like, okay, but it's like, and I don't know why.
Just loving what you have.
I know, but I can't explain why one day to me that's like an experience of joy, and one day it's annoying.
Well, because you're believing your thoughts about what happened before you came home, or believing your thoughts about what you want and don't have. So that's a story of the future projected as a past experience or from a past experience.
So then I'll walk in the door.
And everything's your enemy.
Right.
You're looking for what's wrong.
Right. And there's lots of things to find wrong, if you're looking.
Well, that's the mind's job. Its job is to just like constantly look around and see this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and look to itself or the body it's identifying with. This is wrong, this is wrong, it's too old, it's too fat, it's too young, it's too short, it's too tall, it's unhealthy, so mind's job is to just, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So when we begin to question those thoughts, then when mind begins to question itself, in other words, work itself, do the work with itself, then it's a very exciting event, and it's an unending event. It's a very creative event, and it begins to love. When the mind loves what it thinks, it loves what it sees, because everything it sees is projected out of itself.
Now, when the mind loves what it sees, I think I might have the answer to this, but
you're liking yourself,
right? But I'm doing that, or I can do that, right?
Yeah, you're in what people would refer to as a good mood. A good
right.
mood is when we're in a state where we're liking what we think.
Right.
And when we're liking what we think, we like what we see.
So moody is just that. In other words, just that being, it's liking your thoughts.
Yes. So depression is nothing more than someone believing their stressful thoughts. That's it.
Babies aren't born into the world of illusion until they attach words to things. When you're clear, it's great fun to observe that. I love being with my grandbabies. I love hearing what I teach them. That's a tree, that's a sky, I love you. You're grandma's precious angel. You're the most beautiful baby in the world. All these lies, and I'm having a wonderful time telling them, if I'm creating problems for my grandchildren, they can question their stressful thoughts when they grow up. I am joy. I'm not going to censor any of it. So I'm thinking, it's okay with me if I go and I tell them, guys, you have the best dad. I am the best. Really? Are you sure? I'm sure. And I don't have to, and that's a freedom for me. Do you know?
Well, you believe it also. So it just has to spill out of you. And from what I can see, it's, you are, from head to toe. And just so in love with your children and so fair and so wonderful. You can say it and it'll transfer through to them. It's true in all of your opinions.
Right.
And I feel that way about me too. I look at my grandchildren and I think, oh my goodness. And all of us grandparents and parents, we look at our children and the children in our lives, and we're in love, and anything we can say about that just feels true. So that's why I say those thoughts, why would we question them? Let's keep them. It's when we say them and they're not true for us.
Right.
It doesn't transfer. To work with the stressful thoughts is a way to experience honestly and genuinely all the affection and love that we feel and share with each other. When we're believing the stressful thoughts, it's, what we're believing in those moments surfaces, and it frightens our children and it frightens us, and there's the bad mood.
Right.
Because, any danger for children doesn't have to be expressed through fear and anger, and anger is a mask for fear. They don't have to be taught that way. Of course, they do have to be taught that way, as long as the parent believes their stressful thoughts. Mm-hmm. But it can be communicated so differently when the parent is sane.
What comes first, a feeling or a thought?
So the thought comes first. Thought is cause. It's original cause. It's the first. Without thought, what is there to feel? Nothing. So you have to be identified, like, I am Katie, and if I believe that, then I can feel. But what is feeling? There's no way to identify, so it's always thought and then feel. But people recognize feelings first, so they think feelings come first. And that would lead us to believe that we have been struck with feelings and there's nothing we can do about it, that life is just suffering. And when people question what they believe, then they come to see that thought first, then feelings. And this is wonderful news because it gives us control over our feelings. We can notice it, question what we were believing as we were feeling those feelings or just prior to feeling them, and turn that stress into a whole different experience. For example, if we're thinking a stressful thought, we question it. The next time that thought happens inside of us, we no longer believe it. So where there was stress, there's laughter, and I don't know anyone that opposes laughter, unless they've just had a surgery and it hurts, and they don't complain too much about that.
But you could have the belief, like after someone dies, that laughter is wrong, that there's a period of mourning. That could be a belief. Well,
and there is a period of mourning for many, many people. And as well there should be. Look what they're believing. How could they not?
Right.
And I love that we respect sadness, and that we are very respectful of all feelings. And it's feelings are an effect of thought. So when someone's sad, I respect it very deeply. I remember when sadness was possible for me also, and for all I know, it still is possible. But, not yet.
Right. Oh my God, that's great.
There's a respect about it that goes with it. Like if I see someone sad, I see someone being very, very honest, someone courageous enough to be open and feel what they feel, and I know what that pain is like.
Right.
And so there's a lot of respect that goes with that. If I believed what they believed, I would be sad too.
Right.
So I live in a state of grace.
So, like as we sit here, right, and talk, I don't, so it's hard to identify, like I feel things or whatever's happening, I don't know. Like I feel sometimes something behind my eyes or something here.
Yeah.
What is that is that feeling or is that just sensation or?
It's like as your mind opens, the symbol for that is the heart opens. And it's like when your mind opens, it's like your whole body, your whole being opens up.
Because I feel it, like as we're talking, I feel,
It's like a rain.
here, a lot here,
Yeah. Yeah, you're being your whole genetics, DNA is changing. I like to say that the every time you see that something isn't true, something you've been believing all of your known life, you see that it's not true, then the next child that comes into the world cannot Velcro, cannot attach to that thought as strongly as they could have before you questioned
Right.
that belief, because the world is believing that less.
Right.
And that is the end of war, and that's the power of this work, and that is what it's about, and it is personal work. It is not for everyone, it is for you. It's for the one that picks it up and gets personal with it.
Right.
The one that really wants peace in their life and joy and happiness and wants to end the war with themselves. And also, the work is a peace movement.
I can see that.
It's certainly, just from reading 1,000 names, your life is shifting, and is it true has become so alive in your mind.
Right.
And it gets in there like like any other thought. Only it's a thought that's working, and it's a thought that opens the rest of itself, the rest of mind's self up to more. And as it continues to fall into that, the mind continues to open, the heart continues to open.
Your friend, I don't know if it was a friend, she was in the hospital, and this is that interaction, and you told her that, okay, you gotta...
She said, "I love you." I was on my way out and not expecting to, she wasn't expecting that she would ever see me again. She was dying. And she said, "I love you." And I said, "Sweetheart, that's not possible. It's as long, and until you love cancer, you can't love me, because every thought she believes about that cancer, the first time I don't give her what she wants or threaten what she has, then those thoughts would be attached to me just like they are cancer, because there are no new stressful thoughts. We don't like cancer. We don't like, we put those thoughts on our partners, on our children eventually, when anything opposes our will or what we want."
Well, when you say this, I can get it. It's very against my beliefs, or something.
And cancer happens.
Right.
And I do like to say that cancer has a right to life. I'm for right to life. And we can do chemotherapy, we can do all of that, and cancer lives or dies.
But if I look, I prefer not to have it.
Well, how intelligent of you.
What a genius, I knew it.
Yeah, but of course, who wants cancer, when they love life? And I have to say that I'm open one way or the other. I don't have a preference, because where I live is what do I know about what's best for me?
Right. Okay. Well, I can't be there.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you are or not.
Right. But I get it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I get that it's possible.
Yeah, it's almost like if I say, if I have cancer, that's fine with me, and if I don't have cancer, that's fine with me. And it's almost as though people are frightened to be that awake or aware about balance in their life or what is in their life, as though we're so superstitious if we say, it's okay if I have cancer, that I'm actually going to bring it on.
Right. If I think that I like it, then I'm inviting it.
And look at what ancients we are to still be superstitious. I mean, that is. It's like, oh, I can't say that. I can't even think that.
Yes,
it could happen. Like I have the power, but when people say you create on your own reality. People get cancer and they say, oh, what did I do to create the cancer? You know, like they did it. But that's not what creating your own reality means. And people, if they would do the work, they would come to see what it really means. So I can safely say, you know, if I get cancer, you know, I get it. And
Right.
and if that's what's best for my life, I'm for it. And what do I know? But I know right now, cancer is not what's best for my life because I don't have it, and I could be sitting here just full of it. But until a doctor tells me I don't have cancer,
Right.
in other words, until I believe it.
Right, because it's not in your thoughts, right?
Well, no, I don't believe it.
Oh, I see.
Because they don't tell me. And of course, you know, if we look to this one, to me, I don't know. And it's not my business if this body has cancer. My business is to work with my mind and keep this body as healthy, as respectfully as I can. That's how I say it. And the rest is all good.
Who is God in the book? What do you mean when you say God?
God, for me, is reality because it rules. And it rules absolutely. What I mean by that is, it is what it is. It is what it is. And in other words, this table is sitting here. It's a table. I call that the last story. You question that and you don't have much, and that's okay too. But the last story, you know, this table. So that's reality in this unapparent world that people believe they live in. So and that's enough.
Right.
Like a table, that's reality. Okay, now the story we put on the table, that's not reality. Using table
Pretty, it's a pretty table.
It's an ugly table. It doesn't work in here. It does work in here.
So let me ask you, okay, I don't know if this is an odd question, but let's say you're an interior decorator, right? And and your home is an Architectural Digest. That's considered beautiful, but there's like an agreement that that's beautiful. You know, and there's a certain home that most people agree wouldn't be in there. Is that true?
Well, you know, it's up to you to look at the magazine and determine for yourself. You could say, you know, I'm the only one that thinks this is terrible, and question that. Or isn't this beautiful? And imagine that other people agree. And it's just all up to you.
But what gets it into, you know, in other words, what gets it in there? What gets it into the magazine?
Well, in the moment, your head did. In the moment, your head did. That's the only place it exists, whether you're holding the magazine or we're just discussing it right now.
But in other words, right, okay, I can...
Good.
Yeah.
Caught up with yourself.
All right, good, I got it.
Yeah, it brings you out of another world
Right.
into man sitting on chair talking with friend.
Right.
That's really nice. Again, that's the last story, and it's enough for me. It's
Right.
all I ever need to know is what's going on right here, right now, and be awake to that and serve that at 100%.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed or stressed?
I can't honestly say that I do.
Because there are times when I don't know, whatever it is that the kids have to be somewhere, I've got 50 tax returns to do, I've got some guy who came into my office who I believe said something.
Whatever you're believing is what is overwhelming you, not life. Life never overwhelmed anyone. You're really only doing one thing, and everything else is what you're believing.
You say reality is kind, and it's
Well,
how is that? Kind seems like a label that...
Well, Einstein said the most important question to answer is the universe friendly? And so I fell into that answer not even knowing there was a question about 20 years ago. And nothing has changed my mind about that. The universe is friendly. And anytime anyone's mind looks out and perceives something as not friendly, they're going to feel stress. They're going to physically feel stress, that mind identified. Okay, the simple version, anytime you judge anything or anyone as not friendly, not for you, as unkind, you're going to feel that as stress or out of order. You're going to feel that as stress. So what the work does is we question our thoughts about the world, our stressful thoughts about the world, and we come to see every time that the universe in fact is friendly, that it's all happening for us, not to us, and there's no exception to that.
No matter what happens.
Wars, famines, cancer, all of it. All of it. No mistake in the universe. It's nature is friendly. And that's why I'm inviting everyone that doesn't see it that way to identify their thoughts about reality, write them down, and get very still. These 4 questions and the turnaround, this is meditation. It's mental yoga, and it's very important for people who really want to end the war in the world. If you don't do war with yourself, you would just automatically know how not to do war with the rest of the world.
Well, that makes sense, and that, so I can like feel that or see it or whatever you want to call it, think it, or, that imagine if everybody questioned everything as if it were true, it would stop war.
Let's say, for example, like you as a father and me as a mother and grandmother, let's say something happened to one of your children, and you immediately believe that's a terrible thing. And that is the mind that would say the universe is unfriendly, that the universe is terrible, that a very terrible thing has happened. Okay, that causes grief. That argues with the nature of the universe at a very combatant level. Okay, so it's a terrible thing that your child died. Is that true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? And look how you react when you believe that thought.
It
your world ends.
Right.
Your world ends, but only to your deathbed, and everything else becomes second best. The sadness immediately takes over. I mean, a person could sit in this. How do you react when you believe the thought that it's a terrible thing? And you just sit in that. Again, this is meditation. And then the 4th question, who would you be without the thought that your child's death is a terrible thing? And I'm not even asking people to do this. I'm not even expecting them to. I'm just inviting them to peace. I've invited them to reality. So who would you be without the thought?
Now I'm going to answer this because I kind of, what if the answer is not a good father?
Yes, a terrible father.
Right.
And terrible fathers are fathers that are so confused that the daughter's or the son's death isn't enough misery. They have to be miserable the rest of their lives because of that death. That does not make any sense.
Right.
The death of a child is enough. That is enough suffering. So how do you react? You become sad. You teach the other 4 children that death is a terrible thing, that it is the worst thing that can happen. They lose their parents just like that. There go their parents. There goes that harmonious family down the tubes.
Right.
That's misery. That's the effect of believing basically that the universe is unfriendly, that that's a terrible thing. Okay, so who would you be without the thought? A terrible father because you're not teaching your family fear and terror and stripping them from what they had. So to really sit with it and look at it.
Right.
But for me, who would I be without the thought? Woman sitting in chair.
Right. Okay.
With the child, woman sitting in chair. Without the child, woman sitting in chair talking to friend. That's reality. That's reality.
Right.
In the same way I'm doing it right now. So the turnaround on my child's death is a terrible thing. The opposite turnarounds are simply taking the concept to the opposite.
Right.
And not being tricky with it. There's no set way to do it, just using the same words, finding opposites, and putting ourself on it as an opposite. Let's say that's my child's death is a terrible thing. Turned around, my child, what is the opposite of terrible? Wonderful. My child's death is a wonderful thing. Okay, if the universe is friendly, why is it better for your child? Why is it better for you? Why is it better for the world if the universe is friendly? And so answer that. And if you find one, you can find one reason, you can find two. If you find two, you can find three. If you find three, you begin to live in that polarity until nothing moves you from your nature.
I mean, the thing that...
Not your child's death, nothing.
I mean, what I can definitely see is that, and it's hard because it's a thought, but the thought's powerful. It's almost like, it's kind of like when someone dies, the thought of them is like keeps them alive. But when I have the thought, oh, my child died, it's almost like it's almost like it's happened. Not the thought is real because now I'm like, oh my God, but I can definitely see that it's very hard for me to say, but I can definitely see a power in the turnaround because then I'm still here.
Yeah.
For everyone else and
myself.
myself.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. Okay.
And then another wonderful thing, what's another? They don't have to suffer.
Right.
And
they won't have to go through. I can tell you lots of stuff.
Okay, so death becomes the most exciting celebration. It is not to mourn, it is to celebrate. But when the mind believes it's a terrible thing, it's locked in and the mind begins to seek all the reasons why it's terrible, and families lose each other.
Right.
It costs them the children that are alive. Everyone lives in the tomb.
Yeah.
So let's look at another one. On my child's death is a terrible thing. On my death is a terrible thing. The death of you and the father that you were to your other children has just died. He's grieving. With the child that went you. And there goes the father of the other children that are left. You're too busy suffering to prove how much you love the other child, and that's not doing your other children a lot of good. And also, we are teaching them to suffer rather than celebrate death and what is. So another turnaround, it's a terrible, my child's death is a terrible thing. My thoughts about my child's death are a terrible thing.
It's interesting because Emma, who's 10, my Emma, she worries about the triplets. Last week we were at the playground, we couldn't find Sam. She couldn't find him. But it's a thing, since very young, since the triplets came home. Yeah. And Emma freaks, and she's frozen. And, people have commented about it before. And some people see it as a virtue, like, oh, here's Emma worries about her. But then, I don't know, I'm seeing something else about it now.
It's a virtue as Emma suffers. She's really in fear.
She's in fear.
It's painful.
Very, for her. And she tells me, Daddy, I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to get her out of it.
Well, you know how to get you out of it. You know how to get her out of it. You say, Sam's not okay, honey. Can we absolutely know that that's true? We can't know. So let's go find Sam. Let's go find Sam.
Take her and find him.
Yeah.
Right. Well, somehow something in me is like, I have compassion for her with it now. It's not like, Emma, what are you doing getting so,
Yeah.
And then I'm that, and
she's believing her thoughts about Sam.
And then I'm doing the same.
You're believing your thoughts about Emma.
Right. And it just all sort of goes to pot, you know?
Yeah, it's and we just see that as common existence.
You know, it's funny because in the book, you know, I don't know, you know, it's my thing, but I like sort of connected to Roxanne.
Yeah.
And again, it's more of the children thing.
Yeah, so you just say her name, you know, my daughter's name, and I'm just filled with joy and love and tears come to my eyes. We're so close.
Right.
But that is dead or alive. For all I know, she's dead. A truck hit her. What do I know?
Right.
So it would not be her death that would bring suffering into my life. It would be what I was thinking the moment they told me she died.
I'm going to tell you this story that I love in the book, and it just spoke to me, and I don't know why, but, you know, so you're, I don't know where you were with her, and you meet a friend comes up to you in the supermarket with Roxanne, and there you guys are strolling down buying whatever you're buying, and over walks this friend who hasn't seen you for a long time and says, "Oh, Katie, how's your mother?" And you say, "Oh, my mother's great, she's dead." Mm-hmm. And then Roxanne says, you know, as you walk out, she says, "You know, Mom, you just really can't talk to people like that. They just can't handle it."
On this book tour, many people came to thank me for 1,000 Names, and one woman in particular said, I've always worried about losing my cat, and that was like the worst thing that could ever happen. And I've had my cat for 20 years, and my cat died, and I am not grieving. I can't make myself grieve. That cat is so everywhere. It's like nothing shifted and changed. And she said it comes from reading this book. The very thing she dreaded just isn't happening. So there was a great shift took place in that woman, and all she heard was the truth, and it made sense to her, and her mind was able to shift to that because it just made sense. Those simple truths through 1,000 Names, and they're just traveling through the planet and waking people up to what is and what isn't, the difference between those two.
So what does she mean when you can't talk to people that way, they can't handle it?
She watched this change take place in me from the beginning, and she would, you know, without references, you learn everything again. Like, Mom, we don't wear our pajamas to the market. We only wear them in the house. And I'm going, okay, so we wear this here, we wear this. There's a lot for the mind to remember. It's a crazy dream. Life is a dream. So let's see, in the dream it goes better if you don't wear the red sock with the black sock. You wear 2 reds or 2 blacks. And I think, my goodness, who thinks of these things?
Right.
Who put this stuff together? And you just get so excited and about, wow, you know, and she was kind of defining how we do things here, giving me references. And because the don't know mind, at the level I was experiencing it, and again, no one has to start from scratch this way, and if they do, they're perfectly safe.
Right.
You know, as I would walk through airports and it says baggage, I don't have to know. Gate 53, I don't have to know, it's all done for me.
Right.
Want to know what time it is? Ask someone. And people love to be asked. They love to be asked. I recall catching a red eye one night, and there was the nicest looking man seated next to me when I sat down, and he had on this wonderful business suit, and it was just so comfortable to sit down, take his hand in his arm, put it in my lap, close my eyes, and go to sleep. And when I woke up, he had not moved his hand. And, you know, things like that, I say, you know, he was someone wise enough to know that we don't have to be introduced, that we're all friends. And when we need each other, we're there for each other.
You picked the right guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? You see, your belief system, whatever you were thinking in that moment,
Right.
keeps you from experiencing people as your friends. That's why you see, that's where the term stranger happened. There
Right.
are no strangers. There is no one that thinks differently than you do. In other words, there are no new stressful thoughts in every language in the world. There are no new ones. And as long as we're stuck in those thoughts, in other words, as long as we're believing those thoughts, we are going to remain as dinosaurs, like ancients, like superstitious,
Whack
frightened
jobs,
children.
Right. Crazy a little, right?
Crazy a lot.
Crazy a
We
lot.
still
I'm trying to
we
be-
still kill people on this planet, thinking that it's going to work differently than it ever has, and it doesn't.
There are people who believe, I mean, well, you know, smart people, intellectuals, if you will, writers and, columnists, and you've met who believe in war, or, who believe, and they're smart. So, you can get a Harvard professor who believes what he believes. And so, you take someone like me and I'll say, oh, that's a Harvard professor. He knows. So I follow, or I agree.
You begin to believe what he believes. And so you remain a believer.
And sometimes when I see someone who has an opinion, and it could even be about war, and they make sense to me, I go with it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's just that it makes sense to you, and that's where you go, and that's how we do it.
The don't know mind. You mentioned the don't know mind. What do you mean by that?
Well, the don't know mind could be true. I don't know. So the don't know mind is an open mind. It's not a stupid mind. It's not an uneducated mind. It's simply the mind that is open to, I don't know, and I'm open. The I know mind is like a straitjacket. It is the teacher, not the student. And the teacher doesn't grow much. The student is available to learn and grow and to open to new things.
See, I don't know, as we're sitting here, I don't see you as a teacher.
Well,
I don't see you,
to me, that's a compliment.
I see you as like, I don't know, it's like a dance or something. I don't even know the word, but...
I'm a teacher in the sense that we all are. If I am living a life that is fearless, that's what I'm teaching. If I'm living a life that is fearful, that's what I'm teaching. Mm-hmm. So we all are equal teachers in that. It's just, what are we teaching?
But I definitely see you as someone pretty interesting and different, different to my head. Or I don't know what it is.
Well, I like the word...
Engaging? I don't know what it was.
I like the word friend.
Friend, okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was that.
Yeah,
right,
I love the word friend because there's an equality to it.
Right.
There's an understanding friend to friend. And that's what I feel with all people.
And
I learn from them. Right. I grow from them. And always.
Do you sometimes connect and sometimes not? I don't even know if that's...
No, I work with concepts. People are a concept.
So then
There's only mind. Mm-hmm. There are no people. There's only mind. Mind is everything. Mm-hmm. It is the creator of everything. No story, no world. It is what it is.
Right.
And if being happy means we have to have things a certain way, then every human, no wonder they're so miserable. But if you love everything you think, then you're not vulnerable to a physical appearance in your own or anyone else's.
You said you work with concepts, not people. So what is a person?
A person is who they believe themselves to be. No more, no less. Period. That's it.
When you look at me, or, but what do you see when you look at people? Like, what do you...
Well, I don't bother identifying it. It's unnecessary. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't believe it anyway. And and I hear everything you say. So I'm dealing with concepts, mind to mind, and it's not even separate mind. I couldn't call what you say your mind. It's my mind. I'm the one hearing it.
All right, I believe
Good,
you.
good.
All right. So
Good.
what are you?
That made sense to you.
Right, that makes sense to me.
That's correct.
Who is your husband to you? Is he a
Whomever I believe him to be, or I have to say more honestly, he is whoever he believes himself to be. And I don't bother because I wouldn't believe what I think about him.
Why would you marry? Why marry someone? Why be with one person?
I would have to have a past to even believe that.
To believe what that?
That I married him.
Oh, you don't.
But I'll say yes, we married, and we've been married for so many years, and it's wonderful.
But you did. I mean, you're with him. Could it be anyone?
See, I'm with him in your story, and I don't see him here.
Right. Yeah.
See, you're open, so I'm just, we're just walking here. But you're getting a glimpse into my world.
Right.
Which gives you a glimpse into your own.
So why did you marry Stephen?
He thought it would be he thought it's a fabulous idea, and I didn't know why not.
Right.
Any why not that would surface wasn't valid.
Now, so it could have been anyone who married you, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, it couldn't have been because it didn't happen.
Well, there you go.
So you found that one. And if someone else said, will you marry me? I don't know why not. And then I do. I can find a valid one. I'm already married.
Right.
And they can say, marry me anyway. And I think, in the dream, it's not possible. There are laws against it. And we can do it, and it wouldn't be valid, but,
We could do it.
it just wouldn't be
right.
true.
It just wouldn't work out very well.
What I'm saying here is the dream is a flow. There's nothing out of order. Nothing out of order until you begin to believe your stressful thoughts. And in that moment, you're entering a nightmare. And feelings will let you know. So feelings are the gift that wake you up to you're entering a nightmare.
Right.
Your dream is about to enter catastrophe. And so question what you're believing, and if a person would do that, then they move back into the happy dream until eventually they come to understand that they're a master at, you could say life, but life is but a dream.
You know what? It's just like totally blows my mind that I get this.
Well, I think you're expressing what a lot of people get when they read 1,000 Days for Joy, and they open to, is it true? And that begins to meet the thoughts, the surface.